but how much time do you have for the meeting?
I can go probably an hour if necessary.
Okay.
Okay,
So yeah, does that
terrific.
sound good? Because I don't know if we need to go through all the company background stuff.
No, no, I think we can probably jump in. I think just getting into it, we can probably talk about the points as we go through. Um, and you've got a bit of a technical background, obviously, Laurence, so that's helpful. Um, why don't we we'll just go through the admin and its link, and I think that and please just dig in, Laurence, with questions about how this relates to the things we've just talked about as I go along. Um, so the first thing is that um, underneath this, the first priority was building a data platform first, and then building out, nicer and nicer user interface issues on top of it. But they need to be built on a platform of really solid data understanding.
Right.
And so in that sense, the first thing is having, a concept we call entity types. And so you can create your own, entity types here, and we have one which is, obviously a focal point for our discussions, which is a building entity type.
Right.
And when we click on it, it has an ID of building and a name building, but in it we have related to a building type a data schema, levels of detail that might, that might typically be associated, and layers that these might be associated with. So this is kind of the setup of the environment on a user account. So you get, for example, there would be an NKF account, and it would say nkf.nextbase.host Bruce entity types. I'm just working in the test or sample
Okay.
environments, but you get your own space to work in, and then all the data, all the relationships, everything related to that we can import is specific to you. And so when I go to data schema, we've got a basic building type. This was just imported from another system that we've been messing with, but you have the ability to add any field you like into here that you think might be of relevance to you.
Let's see. So, what would be relevant? Obviously, the building address probably.
Yeah, so we've got an address in here.
Right. And the name of the building.
Yeah, so we've got a name down here. Yeah.
Who the owner is and the key tenant.
Right. So let's add that in here. And in fact, I'm going to trash a couple of things here because we won't worry about the earthquake. Right. Well, we'll take out the Prupi number, and so you've seen us delete that register key. We'll take that out. Earthquake rating. It's a big deal in New Zealand.
Hey, well, it is in California too.
Yeah, so I'll leave that one there. But let's add one. Oh, actually, hang on. Let's add one. So what do we call it? The key is the owner. So I'll just call the key name owner, and then we'll call it. So one's the human readable. Wow, we'll make them both the same. Owner, and this key is has to be unique within the schema, but it doesn't have to be unique within the whole system, if you know what I mean.
It would be like current building owner.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? The description would be current owner, right?
Yeah.
You might also have historical history, ownership history too, would be another data field.
Yeah, and then that might just be a...
Yeah, and then you could put last purchase price, right? So you know what the price of the building was. That could be the next, you know what I mean? So you can understand, Laurence, that essentially, I don't think we expect your brokers to do this. It's
No.
Right.
it's going to be you doing it with Next Days, right? You guys together,
Yeah.
kind of going, all right, let's, you know,
That's exactly right, Kevin. Initially, Laurence, we would simply work with you with this tool, you knowing what this tool is, and would set it all up. And then when this tool is ready, you get this tool and you can do this yourself.
Right.
And
now I might be able to have a database or a spreadsheet with pertinent information like this. Is there a way to maybe scrape something like that and populate it?
Absolutely. That's why, if you'll excuse it, we'll go through slowly, but yes, absolutely, there is. So what we're doing here, actually, just follow me. What was the other one? You said owner and...
well, ownership,
So,
ownership history would be, does that
No, I thought Laurence mentioned a couple of, just when we started, you said owner and...
like current owner, maybe fair market value, and then maybe key tenants. I'm just spitballing here, but
no, that's all right. And we can. That's the thing. We can add and subtract these at any time, now or in the future, because market valuation.
maybe like percent vacancy.
Yeah. Vacancy. We'll put C. Save.
Square footage available. Those type of kind of metrics.
Square foot. Yeah. Well, actually, we'll put that in Control X name P.
And Mark, all that business property and leasing and stakeholder data would have sub data sets, right? So there's probably a way to create a
data there is
that's the problem with the real estate industry. And I'm not knocking Laurence, I'm not knocking you or your office, but that's what happens is a lot of these things are created independently, and so you have all these different data schemas that are just basically done because they made sense by the person who made them, but they're all different.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're dealing with here. So what we're saying at this point, so I'm just adding these things, while we're at it. We can add them at any time, and I could have put them all under a subcategory just called, real estate data as opposed to address data, but I put them all on the top level. We can mess with that later. The point is that it's up to you. So what we're doing here is we're defining the things and indexing them that are going to be of interest about a building for you. And then we're going to be scraping data from other, data sources, spreadsheets, KML, whatever we have, and we'll show you that process. And then they'll map, and we draw lines from their schema to these things. So I
have a question. Is this, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but is this kind of editable depending on kind of what industry we're doing? So like, office is going to be different than the retail sector, which is going to be different than the industrial sector, as opposed to kind of what the brokers are looking at of interest.
Absolutely, yeah. And multiple ways to do that. One is to have different accounts, that have, so if you wanted, for example, a building to be represented differently to different people, there are two ways to handle that. One is to have a building, or in fact 3 ways. One is to have a building real estate, and the other one is to have a building, retail or something like that, or a building. So they have different types of buildings. And the other one is to have building and then have, just arrange the schema in a way that, has the data. And then when we build the final UI, as you'll see, a feature which is not included yet, but will be here, is the ability to say, for a given, schema, for a given display schema, display this or that or that, and so forth, and tick them. So you can control what. Yeah. So there's that's why. So the underlying, there's things that we have to make it flexible, but our key premise is that all the data must be able to be connected, regardless of what it looks like or where it's displayed. If it's related, it must stay related.
Right.
So I'll just go here and we'll save that schema now. If I go to, so that's an entity type. So we've got building. We'll just make sure that did in fact save it. No, it hasn't. Let me just. Why did that not? I'll just do a refresh and make sure. There's a few little glitches in here at the moment where some things can. Earthquake status. Let me just try saving that once more. My apologies, Laurence.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, this is earthquake. Right. Making sure that those are indexed, and we'll put key tenant.
Hey, Mark, and given the fact that we're set for time,
yeah,
we can spend more time on the data schema if we have time at the end too.
Yeah.
But to fill in fields and stuff now, we could try a couple more times. We know you're still building it.
Yeah. No, sometimes you get surprised with what's there. So let me just, that's what I missed is the save button over here. It's a silly thing. That's what it is. That's what the problem is.
Plug in the light switch.
Yeah. So we'll, what was one of the other ones? I think owner. We'll put that at least in here as well. And I think that was the problem. And that's the sort of thing, Laurence, we're just sort of working on as UI issues are getting a bit more consistent. There'll be a tab up the top with save in it now and that sort of thing. I think I've come across that one before. So that's saved, and let's just save that now. And
one question here is, Mark.
There we are.
Is if we that's great. So then if we want to break down each floor,
yes,
we can do that, right? It's just
yes,
a larger data group, right?
Right. So let's go through that. That's why I'd say we just if I can go through the fundamentals, I know it seems a bit boring, but it'll suddenly answer a whole lot of questions naturally.
Okay.
Yeah. So now that we have this building, so we've entered and we've made changes to the what represents a building to us. Then we have the concept of levels of detail, LODs.
Mm-hmm.
So LODs, and you can define your own types of LODs. So these LODs are different visual proxies for that thing. So for a building, I can have a 2D building outline, I can have a 3D GIS model, I can have an AEC CAD model, I can have a photo or an image or a point cloud or just made up format. I could have a VR or augmented reality format version of that building. And each one of those can have 8 levels. In fact, we could add more, 8 levels of detail of each of those types of things. Does that make sense? So what we're doing is we're storing the concept. Here's a building type. A building is a type of thing, and these are the types of visual proxies that may be of interest to us to represent this building by under certain rules of how far away are we looking at it from, what user is looking at it, that sort of thing. So it's a special kind of visual attachment or file attachment that is designed to be a visual proxy specifically. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
cool.
when I go, when I go to this is a key is this name. It's a GIS ideal for 3D display of the entities, all that sort of thing. So if you keep that in mind, that's a special type of thing. And then we go to the layers. We say these are the layers that we might want to put buildings on. And these are either in the system, but I can add a new at any time. Yeah?
Okay.
So now if we go and we have a concept of a floor and a room or a router or, whatever you want. And these are things. And then we have entities themselves. So when we go to an entity now, and we can search. So let's have a look at all buildings on layer BIM, and load that.
So, for instance, Laurence, these could be the buildings that have been hand modeled that you want to add to the scene of the Cyber City layer.
Gotcha.
Exactly. So here's a building. This is one I remember putting in there. So if I click on that building, every building entity, so it's been uploaded. Essentially I can import. And I get a whole dialogue then to import one or thousands of new entities. And they can be files, they can be KML files, they can be GLB. There are different ways that entities come into being, including just dragging and dropping them into the 3D scene. So this is one I've dragged and dropped into the 3D scene at some stage. And everything that gets logged, if you like, gets a QR code. And that QR code you could actually print out and paste to the front door of the building, and with an iPhone, get to this entire data matrix behind it from this QR code. And then we have the relations related to this building. So we'll see if there are any relationships. No, they're not. But if I added a new one, I can build a relationship which is, is it contains or a new type, or is a parent of, or is a child of, that sort of thing. So we won't bother adding one there. The LODs, there's probably just one LOD. Sure enough, it's the it's one GLB file. So we have one LOD to represent this. If I click on it, we'll actually let's see if the view, come on, should just view. Here it is. Try that again.
I don't think they're crossing a bumblebee in the Bay Area.
No. I'm not quite sure why that's on view and it's not downloading, so it might be doing something. But that would normally show us the 3D Golden Gate Bridge in this case, I think, from memory. So,
as far as the LODs go, imagine that you've got a building, say the Transamerica building, where you want to look at it with in a textured form. You want to see it in the context of the base map of the the light gray white building base map, or you might want to see it as a high resolution sort of Revit file with all the floors open, so you can look at all the different floor schemas, and those are the different LODs you can put on into the system. So you can bring in, like, if somebody really did a really complex hand model, you can bring that in as well.
Yeah,
like exactly a rendering or or maybe slices of the building.
And this is
absolutely anything you like. Anything that's been modeled separately, beautiful renderings, 3D visualization, use whatever viewer you like, and it's all associated. So when you want to go into virtual reality in future, everything's here already linked. The data's all connected. It doesn't become this isolated presentation. It's all connected.
And
very cool.
If you're an architect, obviously this is probably a higher priority, this feature.
Right.
Because an architect, they're doing all this design, so they have every version of a design that they've got, So they might want to do all of them in 3D. They might want to have all, and you can do that with this system.
Now I can see where that type of application would come in handy for presentations with clients, where you could really wow them with a different, a couple different views of what's, the building, if it's if a proposed building or a remodeled building or whatever, where you can have a few different things and possibly VR in the future, would really be really cool.
And also, like the city of Cambridge, they have a law now where you have to submit a 3D model of your new home design. So this would be a way to submit it to the city, and then this could just go right into the system, and it would be proposed model number 334 Cambridge Street or something. And that could then just be displayed and shown and you can generate a screenshot or whatever and show the design. So it's, for real estate, it's a little bit different because you guys are dealing with existing entities and space leasing, but also I think you do development, you do new proposals. So I think it makes sense too.
There's definitely a lot of like urban renewal projects and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
To showcase kind of future renderings and stuff like that would come in handy for sure.
Yeah, yes, and that's the idea, is that, one of the premises, I've been in the 3D game for so long, Laurence, and, I see so many 3D presentations that are out of date within a week or two because the fundamental data behind them is wrong. And when you're trying to bring together a lot of data into context, it's a lot of work to build a whole new 3D presentation, because some data's changed, either underlying text or numeric or even the actual design data. Whereas here you're saying, look, we're actually, building a digital model. We'll give you the tools to actually make sure everything's related and up to date, including streaming the data where it's, it makes sense.
Great.
So we've got the entities, we've got entity types, we've got entities, we've got the ways to import them. If I import some file records, that's where I bring up a schema, and we'll see. In fact, if I go in here, I'll actually show you bringing in a simple KML file. Let me just bear with me a moment. I think this will. It's really, we'll use KML file. I'll just bring in something. Here it is. Yeah, that'll do. I'll see if I can do that one. And so now BART station entrances have come in, and then we can either say all this data about the BART station entries from KML files are an existing entity type. I'm going to associate them, with an existing entity type that I might have previously imported, or I'm going to create a new entity type. In this case, I'll call it, station ent. Station entrances, and I won't go and do all my housework at this point. And sure enough, what it's done is built. So this is the data schema that it's found in the KML file, and this is the data schema that will be created inside of Bruce when this data is brought in. So it's going to build entities, and a schema for them that's not there. If I'd said a selected one, it would have brought up building, and then I draw lines to map, the data fields found in here with the data fields in Bruce. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I go place mark, because there was nothing, place mark. Yeah. Actually, I have a feeling I've used 5 before, so I'll just put 5 in. Yeah. And save, and then I index it, and we'll connect that data value down to there. And there's some missing tools here. I want to go show some sample data running through this, but this mapping is designed to work either statically or in real time. So if this data source is a changing file, then this happens through a stream. And then I import the data and so forth. I won't bother bringing that in, but you get the idea. So that's for bringing in CSV files, KML files. We'll be adding GeoJSON and shape and all that sort of thing very shortly. So there's a way to get the data in. And then there's just the raw files themselves, underlying the system. So that's kind of the structure, and further on there'll be more stuff about data sources and data exports for reports, but the UI views is where we start saying, well, let's create something. So we might create a website. Let's we'll go to one. We'll just have a look at one, for example, one that we'll be looking at in Los Angeles, and so this is, in fact, if we look at the main menu, so first of all, under view options, we can add a logo in here of something. I can't think we'll put in that as a logo for the we can start off with, what's our standard terrain and we'll bring your mats with labels, and we'll save that, and then we'll reload that. And excuse me, I'll look at the main menu. So here's the main menu, CC3D buildings. So this is a building of Los Angeles new, and fly to the camera on initial load. Park and ride, we've added a KML file. We literally drag and drop it into here, and that it's a static KML file for display. There's zip codes and parcels, and this is, drawing the zip codes and the data, and you can control the fill opacity and stroke and all that sort of thing. The parking zones, a simple file. So when we go to here and click on Cyber City 3D Builds, it'll take us to Los Angeles. With the terrain. And if we click on a building, we get up information about that building. We get the Bruce, and you'll see these are the fields that we added today. And here's the cesium object data. And so this references us back to the original file that it was uploaded. So if I make a selection, I can download those for use. Here's relationships, and I might want to say, for this building, let's make sure we're talking about the right building. There's a selection bug in cesium. We're just working through it. It unhighlights itself randomly, but I think we can sort that. But so here's a building, and we're going to create a new related entity. So it contains a floor. And so this references, this floor information comes from the entity type, which is a floor. So if I go entity type over here in the data schema, floor number of rooms, that's what this is. So floor number 1, floor area 5,000. Percent vacant, 70%, number of rooms 10. And again, this scheme is up to you. So I go save, and then so we now have that this building contains a floor, and if I want to drag and drop a floor plan into this image. Of the floor plan of the building. Let's see if I can find anything even vaguely like that. Sorry, I'm just looking on my other screen at the moment for browsing LAS photos. I've got a flyover picture, but let's just pretend this was a floor plan. Okay, so that's that's now the floor plan of the building. I think I probably got some. I'm sure I had bits and bits in there.
Hey, Laurence.
Yeah.
In terms of this is the back end building of the the app. And now you're looking at the stuff that you can do right on the desktop. Can you tell us the range of user sophistication that would be able to do the data entry kind of work and the actual authoring of the 3D sets and data scenes?
Right. So I was mentioning before at the beginning of the call that working on a kind of a database, or at least a spreadsheet where they have all sorts of the different metrics for pertinent buildings, kind of having the data parsed out already. So if it's possible to have something that scrapes that, or can have that easily digestible into this, so it kind of saves on that back end of constantly populating, since that would be what gets updated as far as the data is concerned?
Sorry, Laurence, could you go back just to the beginning? I missed something key at the beginning. So of that request, could you just run through that again?
So we were going through the data for the buildings, right? So we have a database, or at least spreadsheets that have those pertinent metrics populated in them that gets kind of updated periodically. So is there a way to easily digest those formats to populate into this?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, if you send us one of the spreadsheets, I can probably get it in here against the building. You tell us how you'd like to define a building, and we'll do that, and we'll bring that data. In fact, we can use that spreadsheet as the basis for that data schema for buildings.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely. I can't do it right this second, but I can definitely get you, the link to those files for sure.
Yes. Just you saw how we brought in the KML file. The same thing is true. We can bring in a CSV file. It's
okay, and that would populate those fields.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And
so
then the trick. I was going to say, then the trick is to say, well, okay, we brought those fields in, and those fields, presumably, that data that you have will reference a building by address or by lat long or some other key. What is the relationship between a piece of data you've got and a building?
I would say the most reliably common theme would be the address of the building.
Right. So what we have to do in the background, this doesn't have to be understood by the people doing it, but what we're doing in the background then is that for each address in the line of the CSV file, we'll be generating a lat long point and then searching for those lat long points against the building footprint. You'll see how this building, when I select, or this building has a footprint on the ground.
Right.
So we need to find out somehow to match that when I select this building, that we build the relationship between this building entity and that piece of data, which is an entity in its own right. You with me when we bring it up? So so that's what will be going on in the background. And so then, in future, when someone clicks on this, basically it'll bring up, the information about that building from an address, that's been related by address.
Right. Yeah. You just need to have that piece that's relatable to the schema. Got it.
Yeah. So that's just sometimes we need to work through with you. It's like, oh, okay, how are we going to do this? But that's what the tool is designed to set up, is to establish those relationships and then maintain them once they're set up. So if I'll go to a slightly different portal where there's a couple of other examples. We'll go, if I go to this one, just bring up. So this is one done of San Francisco, and if we go to the oh yes, I've got to go to San Francisco. I didn't have fly to, so I'll just type San Francisco. Here we go. And sure enough, here's all of our buildings, and we're looking in San Francisco. And we can look at a building here, for example. Let's actually, I think there's an interesting building over here, this stadium. So I click on the stadium, and we'll see that there's been a photo. And Kevin, you added these, did you, Kevin?
Yeah, I was doing a proof of concept demo for somebody, and we decided to start adding some content.
Yeah. So that's the sort of thing, and it's literally you just drag and drop it, Laurence, onto it. So in here, if I want to add a new photo, I literally just drag and drop the new one So I could go online now and search AT&T Park. And in fact, I think I do have a couple of photos of that specifically, so I could probably do that. Photos, just a moment. Yes, I do. Yeah, so I've got another photo of AT&T Park, so we'll throw that one in. And so, there we are, and we can set that as the primary if we wish. So that becomes a summary photo.
So you could bulk upload all the rental floor photos, and
yeah,
you could. I mean, it's feasible to do that, Laurence.
Right.
I think I mean, you can do anything because you're the you're a head GIS person. Then there's another level where somebody can probably do it if you train them or her, and then there's another level where they just can't do it.
Yeah.
And so
Yes, exactly.
They just send you all the data and say, please load this over at, on the Embarcadero address 4401 East Embarcadero. Please load these photos there. I'm doing a presentation in 4 hours.
Right, exactly.
So this is, you see what, Kevin's done here. This was done by me. So Kevin literally has dragged and dropped a PowerPoint about this building in here. And if we click on it, it'll run, PowerPoint viewer.
Oh, that's cool.
And there's a 3D model of the building, which is more of a, from SketchUp, I think, originally. So I click on that, and it will bring up this, viewer, 3D viewer, completely independently. So this can be, as good a quality as, any rendering system. Yeah, and there's a whole lot of options here we can talk about.
Yeah,
this is one we developed in a past life.
Yeah, we pulled that out of a public warehouse. So, there are times when iconic buildings can be brought in to add flavor to the overall scene,
nice.
Or to, build up your content library. And so there's things you can do to, sort of have better iconic building models if you feel that it's,
yes,
necessary.
These can be, there's a whole range of visual quality options, Laurence, we can talk about. Our background is reasonably strong in the 3D era. We for example, we built you may have seen the 3D PDF models.
Right.
Yes, so we built that in the previous version of this company. We built and licensed that to Adobe. So we're pretty sort of familiar with those sort of tools, and there are many options here, and that's a tool for popping up, a model, and there are outputs from Revit and different systems we can make look, very, very beautiful presentations. So you can treat these things as associated files, because all of these are associated files. In fact, if we look up this entity in the database, we would see this cesium object, Bruce object data, and we go down to here, and if we look up the building ID in it, we would see all of the relationships back, and if I find the entities, and we building, then we'll load them. Excuse me, takes a moment doing the search. Golden Gate Bridge. I got that's the API filter. Press entity type. I can search on any of those things. The attribute, clear, so that type of thing. I'm just trying to find where I did that.
How many buildings are in Phoenix that you guys currently manage or lease to? Or?
So I would, off the top of my head, probably a few hundred.
Yeah.
Like 300 or something, or 500?
Yeah, somewhere around that range. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but that's about right.
Yeah, there's no problem with.
that includes warehouses, commercial, mixed use, all the whole palette.
I'm pretty sure that that's the whole deal. I could double check for sure and give you a hard number, but had a meeting on this before I left the country, but it's been a while, so I don't exactly remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's those are numbers. The thing runs on Amazon, Laurence, so it scales up as big as you need. At the moment, we've got it sort of down to our own, use cases and demos, but it just scales up to whatever size of database and CPUs you need.
And so, Laurence, if we did a bulk upload of all the Phoenix commercial buildings that you have, that your company manages or owns, you can also attribute, colorized schema and things that you'd always see on Esri software. So we can do all this here with Cesium. It's really on top of Cesium. So
very cool.
You can create really nice thematic views that are just really, once you get all the data uploaded, you can start adding more features to it. And one of the things, I think the question, Mark, is that I'm wondering is in terms of like the quick and dirty questions that customers are going to have for very specific things. Are we going to do a 24/7 messaging service? Are we going to do an email question thing, or what's the best way to answer the easy question fast, where we don't have to schedule a go-to meeting?
Oh, I think email support, not a problem.
Yeah. So would you want that too there, like some kind of support link?
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Okay. You'll get a call from someone in Sri Lanka.
Right.
But he'll say he's from North Carolina. Hello. I'm in Tallahassee.
Phoenix 2.
Do we have the Phoenix buildings loaded?
Yeah, I was literally just going to do that now. And so I've just made a new demo. We have it, but just to show you from scratch, Laurence, we're building Phoenix, so I would simply go, here's a demo. We'll go to our view options. We'll say that we want it to have a terrain, big aerial maps with labels to start off with. We'll save that. We'll set up a main building. We'll add caption CC 3D buildings, and these will be Cyber City 3D buildings, and we'll choose Phoenix, I think, Phoenix, Arizona, and we'll fly to the camera. And so we've just started creating a Phoenix portal. So when I go here now, and we'll close off that one, we won't run too many. When we go here, we'll have a demo which has got CC3 buildings. We'll get your logo, we pop that up in the corner, and I'll turn on the buildings here, and that should, in theory, fly us to Phoenix, to the 3D buildings. Yep.
There we go.
Yeah, and what is this? What is this building here?
I think that's your arena, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the baseball field.
Right. So you can do things like this, for example. So it hasn't got any photos, relationships, or fields. Those to be loaded either manually one at a time like this, or in bulk. But so we go to photos. We could go, literally.
What park is it called? Is it Phoenix?
Chase Field.
Chase Field.
Oh, okay.
Chase Field, Phoenix.
Chase Field. There we go. And look for some images. And maybe get a big one of the stadium. That looks like a good one. So you just, and we'll just, save images, and we'll save it to, I don't know, under Phoenix. Here we go, Phoenix, and we'll call it Chase Stadium. And you might have a presentation, whatever it is about that. So anyway, this Chase Stadium. And so now we can show in the folder, Chase Stadium, and folder, show stadium, and I literally just drag and drop that in there, and we'll set it as a primary. So that's now, ignore that view. So anytime now in future we click on it, we have this photo related to it. And if I want to build links or documents, presentations, 3D models of it,
Right.
in fact, we could go here, 3D warehouse. This is 3D models from Trimble. There's a lot of, we go Chase. You never know, there might be a 3D model of it. Chase Stadium. Sure enough, Chase Stadium.
That one looks pretty good.
Yeah. So now we would download that. It's a skip file, and we can show in the folder. And yeah, sure enough, it's there. So we might want to we could just throw that directly in there as a and rename it. Chase Stadium. And we'll just drag and drop it. So we're uploading that document in there. And we'll say it's a bin, or we could call it a presentation file, and save it. And there it is. So we close that down. So ignore the man behind the screen there. There's an upload dialog that should be coming up. So in future, anytime we click on here, we've got a photo and we have that stadium. And if I click on that, it'll load the file, or I haven't actually set the mind. And it would simply load the model in the SketchUp viewer, which I don't have loaded at the moment. But if I load that same model, I can probably very quickly convert it to.
You want to show him, before we conclude, you want to show him the Transamerica building? Because that looks pulled out of the warehouse.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and that's where those buildings came from. Yes, of course. We had to go back to the. Let's kind of call it UI views, and this is where you can, within the actual URL, we can have the buildings themselves, the textured buildings, in the context. So that Chase Stadium, if I, we could do that in the background. Phoenix downloads.
You got to fly back to San Francisco. So, Laurence, are there any other? In terms of questions, anything we've missed in terms of what we've shown? Obviously, there's a pretty big list there, but we wanted to show you the basic infrastructure and the admin.
So something that would be important, if possible, would be to include kind of a demographic layer, so that we could have something like, disposable income layer, or other key demographics that would that we could maybe put like below the 3D buildings, or somehow model them.
Yeah, sure. We'll do that.
Like a polygon demographic layer, or just in the buildings themselves.
We could do it, either way. Whichever, I don't know which would look better.
Yeah, you might want to just make it a object floating information. There's ways to do it, to add but you pull that from the city, right? Is that what that data?
Right.
Get that from like CoStar or Atom Data Solutions. Have you heard of those companies?
I haven't used them, obviously. I'm just relying on Esri right now.
Okay, so they give you that at Esri, the disposable income?
They do. So like that, but like shaded by block group or zip code or whatever the breakdowns are for those different demographic layers.
Yes,
But, you
yeah,
know, it could
absolutely.
be shaded like that, or it could be shaded on the building. Either way probably would work.
Yes, yes. Like the tools to do the on-the-fly colouring, based on data, is not finished yet in this main view, but it's absolutely, intended so that I should be able to go, find me every building, that's taller than X, and paint it, in a gradient from X to Y, as
Right.
the paint on the building. In this case, what we've done is imported the parcels themselves, and the parcels have the data, and we've draped the parcels over it. You can put the models on top of that if you want, but you have this sort of visual thing that you've got to um, sort of move around to get under the parcels. But of course, you just turn the view off. And in the same way, as was shown before, we can turn on and off the textured models, like AT&T Park or
Right.
then I literally just drag them in, here, and there are, you just put them on a layer into textured models. You could have proposal 1, proposal 2, proposal 3 on these layers.
Right. Another I guess kind of request would be maybe to have kind of a similar layer, but for maybe like high traffic density corridors, um,
Yes.
something like that.
Yes, I've actually got demos. I mean, here's one, for example, seismic hazard zones, um, that pop up, car share spaces. Here's the BART system. Here are parklands.
Lawrence, if you want to take a moment and just whatever you can pull down that Esri gives you, if you want to send it, put it in a Dropbox or something for us, we could prepare that because at some point we want you to be able to show this to some of your cohorts.
Right.
Yeah, I think I have some Phoenix data already.
It might be specific,
Yeah.
information that you pull down from either the Esri business analysts that you want us to show because we don't have business analysts.
Okay.
Yeah, here we are. I have got this. So I just put some. This is Phoenix. I just made one previously, Laurence. So if we go to Phoenix now, I literally just dragged and dropped, a bunch of data into the buildings. So we'll turn on the 3D buildings. There's Phoenix. You can have, whatever base map you want underneath here. Just choose your view, and then we can turn on, I don't know, head start centres, and here's not much data about those. Recreate desert parks, historic properties, improve zoning.
Those always take a little longer to load. They're a little heavy.
So there's
Right.
the parks, Paga Park,
So Lawrence,
and
you see, for the most part, we don't do the analytics yet. We've kind of passed from the mapping side and the data management side. We've kind of passed up what Esri does, right? Because Esri can't really do this online. They,
Right.
they're desktop, they're license dependent, but all the basic stuff, you can see how powerful the Bruce engine is. That, really, basically just having conversations with you, the team has been able to pretty much build, way more than 50% of what ultimately is a minimum viable product. So, so you can see the power of it.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's great.
and just to add buildings and things in here, if I don't know if there's a freeway interface. I don't have the
Yeah.
exact one, but
Those are freeways. Yeah.
I just to give you an idea of how the upload works. If you have a model you want to put into the scene, we just convert it to. In fact, I was sort of trying to do it on the fly. Was convert that stadium model into the right format. But let's see.
So the other thing you were talking about, I remember from the list, Lawrence, was bookmarks. Building the bookmarks.
Yes.
Those aren't
Yes. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not there
So,
only because
okay, so they're not there.
yeah, they're just they can be put in. They're just at a different. I guess that's a different stage of the development
Okay.
program. But it's Mark. It's pretty feasible, right, to add the
Oh, yes, we've got them basically in, but we're just the nice UI for setting them up. No, I'm not concerned about.
like a carousel, kind of a carousel thing at the bottom where you can just scroll through or search um,
Yeah,
addresses and the bookmark will pop up and take you there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is what's happened. I've just got a 3D model in here, which we can change to put an altitude of 15 in there, and you can move it around. So we're just literally throwing a 3D model in here into the scene.
Laurence, we can model the freeways and the main transportation nodes. So if you're doing a demo and you're talking about the major transportation areas, you can actually light those areas up.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and so I know it's important when people are doing business location discussions, they want to know where the transportation nodes are. And we can
Right.
model that. I mean, it's not expensive, and we can build this stuff, and then you can make it part of your data set, and you can use it as part of a demo in terms of evaluating location to key off ramps and on ramps and things like that. Because downtown, everybody pretty much knows how to get out of downtown, but a lot of times when you're going away from the downtown area, you want to know where the highways are, especially if you're doing logistics and shipping. Then it's a really big deal.
Yeah, so just add, I'm adding new, flyovers. So I've added it into the scene, but I forgot to say, build a thing for it. So it's a Bruce entity, and it's a building and a 3D GIS format in the highest level of detail, and we'll save, and when we rebuild this. By the way, Laurence, see this URL up here?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could type that in to your viewer now.
Oh. Yeah, or you could save it and start getting to know it.
Very cool.
Yeah, you can familiarize yourself, and we can go through other requirements. So, so do you want to on the sandbox, Mark? This Phoenix, like one of them you might want to get rid of or keep, and the other one you might want to delete, and we'll just call it Phoenix. Well, we call it NFK, whatever, and use it as a sandbox with Laurence, so Laurence can he can play on it and write down notes, and then we can also use it as our reference sandbox, so we can, as we do more development, we can show it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So anyway, so that's I've lost where I put my flyover. It's somewhere in the building, and I haven't got the double click on it yet, Laurence, to go to it. So, but we'll find it. But yeah, that's the.
Are you okay on time, Laurence? Are we about to wind up?
I can still hang on for a few more minutes.
Yeah, so here we are, Laurence. This is, just to reiterate, so that, Phoenix is there, the buildings are here, the data's here, you can, create relationships, add photos, documents, all that sort of thing of this. The pieces that, we'd have to do for you in terms of going back to your, the specifications initially, I think the important thing is that firstly we have all of the data foundations in place, but we're going to have to just deal with some of the UI things that you've got, and happy to do that with you. But the UI things are now easy because the data's there and properly related and matched together. So in terms of an admin dashboard, I think the things that we're missing are the tools to colorize things. To add a tool which is a colorized menu in here with some settings on it to colorize by data field. Yeah, that would be one of them. You there, Laurence?
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't realize that was a question. Yes, that would
Yeah,
be
sorry,
wonderful.
yeah.
Office building, Laurence. What's your address?
2398 East Camelback Road in Phoenix.
Are you in downtown?
Uptown.
So just,
Back road.
you know,
I'm just curious if we've modeled that area. Guess not.
not yet, sorry. But when we have your building, we can literally just drag and drop it there, Laurence.
We got
this is a pretty big office corridor. This whole stretch of Camelback.
Footprints there. Really big footprints right through there. Kind of cool. All right. We have a pretty big, starting with a pretty big area of Phoenix. I think there's about 20,000 buildings there. Something like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of square footage.
Yeah, there's a lot of space out there. So, also, as you review the map, let us know if there's other areas that could be modeled for the base map. So we're, at least prepared to handle that.
Right.
We get big satellites that do the modeling, but we can also prep up for that. So why don't we set up the sandbox, continue with the list, and then we should all circle back in a few days, like right after the weekend, and kind of talk more, and then maybe have a review and talk about, how to drill down and how to meet all the specs, and then where to go from here.
Yeah.
All right, sounds great.
So yes, to that. I mean, if you could have a look, Laurence, at those questions, the use cases and so forth, that document, and then we can talk very specifically how we might achieve each one of them with the fundamental platform that's here. The goal being, I think, that we would tailor, the admin tools to create the user interfaces that you're looking for as we go along, and then when it's ready, give you the admin tools so you can sort of take it over from there and build your own stuff, but continue the relationship, obviously, to keep building it.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
All right, great. So let's talk next week. You've got the URL address saved?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So
good to go.
So you can drag and drop some images there if you want to test out things. Let's go through the list and go over the sandbox, and let's all circle back earlier part of next week. How's that?
Works for me.
Good for you?
Okay.
Good for you, Mark?
Yes, that's good. We'll set it up under the EduGeo sandbox, Kevin, and build that together.
Great. And then also, Laurence, just, make sure that we're, meeting the criteria of, leapfrogging over TBRE and JLL.
Right. Yeah, because that's the most important part.
Gotta have big, strong legs to jump over those guys. Okay. Talk to you soon.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, Laurence. Bye for now.